Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Excited today to have one of my all-time songwriting heroes, Mr. E. Rowland of Collective Soul. It's good to see you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm sorry about all the construction work going on down here. We actually just finished. Y'all are fine. We're having fun.
Yeah.
Y'all are cool. No, we just finished. Collective Soul Boys came in, so we were here for 9 days and recorded another record just because we miss each other first and we enjoy making music.
Yeah, what else are you going to do? You know, last time you and I talked was during the last record with Blood, and at that point you had even said it was possibly you'd wanted it to be a double album, that there were songs left over. Are you saying that these are songs beyond those songs?
Yes. So Vibrating, we split Blood up into two records. And so Vibrating was supposed to come out in June. Of course, with everything going on, that's been postponed. So, and we also had an EP we did for Record Store Day, which was in April, but that got postponed. So we have those two in the can. I have a solo record that I did, and then during this virus, I started another band called The Living Room, which is kind of a new wave. Cars, I love that era. And we talked as a band, and we decided we just missed each other. We really did. We didn't, but I had songs. So when they got here, I was like, all right, I love you too, but let's get to work. So we just recorded another record.
Wow. No shortage of material. So do you even know how you're going to release it at this point? Any of this
No,
stuff?
I mean, like I said, Record Store Day, they moved to the end of August this month. So hopefully that comes. If that comes, that's the start of things. A good sign to me. I love, I'm a big vinyl guy. So that's a good start to say we're back on track. And I guess Vibrating, which was the second half of Blood, I think will come out, once we start touring, because we thought we'd be touring this summer. And that's why they held it back. So we'll see.
So everything's probably a 2021 release at the
the
earliest.
I mean,
the way things go.
they're planning tours for 2021, but nobody really knows. I mean, there was still stuff on books for September. Nobody knows.
Right. Well, you mentioned vinyl, and I'm going to take your cue right there because one of the things we're going to be talking about today is a new vinyl edition of the 1995 self-titled Collective Soul record, and this is vinyl for the first time, right? A deluxe edition, and Hints is also getting a vinyl edition as well. They're both getting out there, and so it's the 25th anniversary. Now, you've many times, in fact, from the beginning, I think until now, you call this the first official, the real debut record from Collective Soul, right?
It really is the debut record of Collective Soul, and I've said it many times. The first Hints was just a collection of demos I did over a 5-year period at a basement studio. I mean, Shine doesn't even have real drums; it's a drum machine, So this is not Ed sitting in a basement by himself. This is 5 guys making music together and figuring out what their sound is, figuring out what Collective Soul wants to sound like, and work at it from there.
It's kind of interesting that you say it like that. I mean, figuring out what the sound is, because the album arrived, it sounded like, fully formed, fully conceptualized in there. I mean, the templates that were set on that record, you can still hear throughout your all's career that kind of stuck through there. I mean, finding your sound, it sounds like you didn't have too much of a problem doing that. What were those moments and sessions like?
Well, it was hard work because, once again, it came out 8 months after Hints did, but we were on the road every day. And so I used sound checks as pre-production. I call it, I'd go in there and go, hey guys, I got this, and, kind of work with them because, I produced it. So I was trying to figure it out. And we all kind of figured, with Shine being the hit, people wanted to hear rock. So we kind of was like, okay, let's go with the rock vibe. It wasn't, we all loved it anyway. I mean, that genre of music. So it was an easy, I don't want to say transition, just an easy formation to go, okay, we're going to do rock and we're going to throw some riffs in there. And I love writing riffs. I'm a big Cars fan, so I always call Greg Hawkes, the keyboardist of the Cars, one of my favorite riff makers of all time. So I was trying to do that, and we played at shows that night. I wouldn't even have the lyrics done. I would just do what we used to call back in the day vowel movement, and it formed naturally, but it formed quickly, and it formed out of necessity because we thought we were going to get dropped. So my whole point was we had every day off. We were in the studio, so the 5 to 7 shows we did a week, whatever that next day off during those sound checks, we were working on what songs, whether it was Gel, December, and we'd go in and record them. River Flows, which, we were in Lake Tahoe of all places. Who thinks they have a studio in Lake Tahoe? But back in the day, you got the old phone book out. You didn't ask Siri, like, hey, what's a studio, recording studio? So we just went at it hard, and I give the guys a lot of credit. They worked really hard and, believed in me and songs and where we were going.
Yeah. In fact, the last time you and I talked, you talked about even using one of the biggest stages you had ever been on at that point, the Woodstock stage, to write a song basically in front of everyone. Gel. Was it Gel?
It was Gel. Yeah. That's the first night lyrics started spewing out. And so they recorded it. So I asked, could I hear it back? And I had about I'd say I got about half of whatever made sense. About half of the song came out that night, because I would just splatter stuff out. And I was like, okay, now I got it.
I mean, I might have said this the last time too, but what balls you have to use a stage like that to go, you know what, I'm going to try something here, guys. This we'll see what happens.
I remember having this conversation I've had with other people. Like, literally, I think I knew 2-3 lyrics to that whole set, because we were playing new music. Like, we were trying to figure it out. We wanted to go in the studio because we thought we were going to go record before they put Hence out. We didn't even think that was going to be released. Yeah. We thought they'd do Shine and they'd let us go in the studio for a couple of months and make a record, and that didn't happen. So we were really anxious, and there was a big turnover going on at Atlantic Records, and we heard that, if one person got the job, we were going to get dropped. So I was like, well, not before we make a record. So that was the urgency also of making the record. I was like, if you're going to drop us, at least I'm getting an album out of this as a band.
Yeah, that's interesting. And once it did come out, I mean, you guys pretty much went full on This Is Us. I mean, I don't know the exact timeline cutoff or how definitive this was, but as far as touring goes, you almost stopped playing Hints altogether, it seemed like there was Shine.
Yeah.
And otherwise it was like full on.
Yeah, it's just Shine. And over the years, we might have thrown in an acoustic song, but it just didn't fit. I mean, I'm very proud of Hints, because to me, it showcases the songwriter I wanted to be, but it doesn't showcase a band. It doesn't showcase a unity. It showcases Ed Roland as a songwriter.
Yeah.
You take that however you want to, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but it didn't showcase a band. And so that was our urgency. It was to go, okay. And we all liked each other. Everybody got along. And it was like, okay, let's do this.
One song that seemed to make its way over, though, was a B-side to December, and that was an acoustic version of Sister Don't Cry. Was there any reason why that song still kind of spoke to you in that moment? Do you remember?
Well, I think just because if we would have got to re-record, I would have kept that song and Love Lifted Me and Shine. Maybe Good Night, Good Guy. There would have been only 4, but at the time I was writing so much, I think those would have been the 4 to start the debut record. Sister Don't Cry was just a personal song for me. It was someone overcoming an addiction, and it was me learning, because once again, you got to remember, you got to back up 5 years when I wrote the song. Though it came out in 93, it was 88 when I was writing these things, and just, being a young 20-year-old and learning about addiction and things like that, and learning to write songs and learning to be comfortable in my own skin, to be personal about my songs without naming names. So that song's always meant a lot to me. And I know the guys like it. Shane, actually, the drummer, he played on that in the demo. So, and to me, it's sentimental just because it was a learning curve for me being a songwriter.
Yeah. That song on a much more tamer, almost, much more tamer version, because Hints was, that was a coming of age record for me at the time. And I had a little sister, and she cried a lot, and I would literally play that song when she cried. And so, my sister's in her 30s now, I'm nearly 40, and that song still means a lot to us in that way. It's like, oh, that's a song good. I used to play for you,
That's awesome. That's sweet to hear.
Yeah. We were talking about touring a little bit, and I did want to ask about one of those tours, because Van Halen, I think you ended up on the road with Van Halen. I hope you don't mind the broad question here, but what was that like? I mean, this is 90s Van Halen at that point, so it's not exactly the Diamond Dave moments.
Yeah, Van Halen, Van Hagar, whatever you want to call it. It was, they helped us out so much. I can look back, if they were mentors to us. They taught us how literally to behave. If we wanted to misbehave, here's the consequences that are going to happen if you misbehave. here's what you can do, and you can stretch it a little bit here. And they were so supportive, and just, we were going through a lot with the manager at the time too, because we had to go through a lawsuit, and they were just all the way around. It was just a blessing to be around them, and still to see those guys. We'll see it once, twice a year. Sammy, I check. He checks on me. I check on him. Michael, they were just so kind. It was like, parents to little kids. All right, you're getting out of kindergarten now. We got to go to first grade now. This is how you're going to behave.
I mean, if you're going to get the lessons from somebody, that's right. That's the one right there.
I mean, yeah, it was overwhelming. Like I said, we'd have hidden in the bus the whole time had they not, because we're just so overwhelmed. I mean, once, everything happened so quick for us, so we're already like confused. But to sit there and go, it's Eddie Van Halen. I remember the story I told you, our first show with him. Eddie's sitting there warming up, and he goes, "Man, I'm really nervous on this tour." I said, "Why?" He goes, I'm getting my act together, and first time I play, like, I don't want to say sober. He's just like, I'm getting my act together. I'm just really nervous. And I said, "Well, we have to open for you. You don't think I'm not nervous?" So we hit it off immediately. We were like best pals right there.
You mentioned that lawsuit there. I know that was kind of part of the story. Like, here you are, 8 months before, major success, right out of the gates with Shine. You're back in the studio. What was going on with the label? Because this would sort of be a story with the Collective Soul and the Atlantic Records that would weave in and out of the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it was just a manager. It just a wrong contract, misunderstandings. I can't really talk about it all, but it just happened at the wrong time. It was like all of a sudden you're on MTV #1 and your album selling, God knows, you're Billboard Top 200 for 2 years, and I can tell you what we're making a week was $150 a week. Nobody. So it's business, and I learned the hard way. We all learned the hard way. It hadn't happened since.
Lessons learned, right? Lessons learned.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And I want to bring up Gel one more time too, because that ended up being sort of the first single, if you look at it, because it actually preceded the album. It made its way on the Jerky Boys soundtrack, which I think a lot of people have probably not thought about the Jerky Boys in a little while. But
called a bridge track. They called it back in the days. Bridge track.
Bridge track. Was I don't know, was there any story to go along with that? I mean, here's, for a lot of people, this is the next thing that they hear really after Shine.
No, we recorded it. We recorded that in Memphis. I remember recording it because it was the first one. We had a day off, and I sent it. Atlantic said, "We have something. We want the whole bridge track thing." And I was like, "Okay, we'll do whatever you want." And I sent it to him, and I was like, "It's not the best song I got, but I'm going to give you this. If you're calling it a bridge track, I don't want to give you what I consider the best. And damn if it doesn't go to #1." And the record label's like, "Well, if that's the worst, what do we got coming?" I don't know. I mean, politics and record companies are hand in hand. It's no different than what goes on in anything else in life.
Well, those songs that did come through, and bringing up December and The World I Know. I mean, you all became a pop chart band, and I'm differentiating that because you've always said, Collective Soul's a pop rock band. I mean, you're a pop band in that way, right? But suddenly you are a pop band. I mean, that had to escalate everything.
It did. I don't know what it escalated in, because once again, when we went through the lawsuit, we came home, and my dad knew a guy that had a cow farm, and I was newly married, and we lived in a log cabin on like 250-acre cow farm. I literally went out and cut wood every morning, put in a stove to keep heat. Like nothing changed on it. It actually went worse. Other than I could see myself on TV and hear myself on the radio. Other than that, I was in dire straits.
Oh man, talk about the contradiction, the juxtaposition going along.
Yeah, and it was hard at the time. It took years before we could look back, because we were so caught up in just like we were struggling more from success than we were before we had success.
Yeah, and then nuts. Um, there is a rock myth that goes along with one of the songs, "Smashing Young Man." I don't want to bring it up if it's false, but I thought I would just throw that out there.
No, I just had a conversation with somebody. We were touring in Europe, and I love somebody was like, "Oh, you're such a smashing young man," and it just reminded me of an old Southern gentleman sitting there.
Mhm.
Oh, you're such a fine looking young man, in a British tone. And I was like, "Smashing young man, that's cool." So did the song, and of course, I don't even want to say anything because I don't want to think. I didn't write it about anybody other than I just love.
Mhm.
And to this day, when I say it, I can hear the people in my first time in England. Oh, such fine smashing young men, and that I was like, that's a great title.
Yeah.
And of course, somebody took it to mean something else, which is let him run with it. I don't care, but it has no bearing on him unless he's a smashing young man.
Well, again, that was one of those things like, we've seen enough rock myths throughout the ages where you kind of look at a few of them and going, I don't know if that one checks out. I don't know if that one checks
It
out.
didn't, but then at some point you get worn out because you got asked. And he started this whole craziness, and I was like, oh, come on, man. Like,
Right.
And so some points I probably would have gone, yeah, it's about it for the love of God. Yeah, it's about you. But
well,
no, it never was. It still isn't.
Right. Well, might not even keep this part in there. Just
Oh, I think it's fun. People should know.
Okay. All right. Well, that brings
He'll get angry again because I didn't write it about him. He'll be pissed off again.
Any press is good press in that sense.
Yeah.
There we go. So this all ends up in a deluxe edition now. There's, I think, 6 new bonus tracks. Most of these, they're live, right? And
They're
then
live,
there's one
yeah.
from the Japanese cut. Tell me about that track.
Jesus, I don't even know what it is. What is it? The why?
Oh, God.
What is it?
It's the one thing I didn't write down.
That's okay. It's the one thing I can't remember, so we're equal. We equaled out. No, I don't know. I really don't. The one track that I remember, we did a Y song. That's why we had Y Part 2, because I'd written a song called Y, and I thought that was the side on I mean, once again, you go back to that time, we were so big. We had no clue what was going on other than just making music and playing. My mom actually brought over our itinerary for that first year in '94, and it shows days off and it shows recording, like, because it was handwritten back then. You got to remember, it's '94. We were doing 25 shows in 23 days, and every day off, it says day off recording. Like, it's pretty awesome to. There's just looking at it exhausts me now. Much I don't know how we did it.
Well, the song was "That's All Right." That's the Japanese only cuts.
Oh, Elvis.
That's all right.
I think that's. Oh shit! See, I forgot we even did that. That's all right. That's all right, Mom.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Well, it's gonna be on the deluxe edition.
I want to hear it. I haven't heard it in 25 years. I want to hear it.
So I didn't know the story about why, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to slip in a little bit of Blender here because while the first self-titled record is 25, Blender actually celebrates 20 years in 2000, and that was one of the things. I was like, I'm sure it's been answered before, but Y Part 2 was the big single off Blender, and I never knew what Y Part 1 was.
I had a demo of a song called Y, and they wanted a B-side in Japan. Mm-hmm. And so I said, we'll use this. I mean, I had like 15 songs to choose, like from the demos from the basement. So I said, put this on there. It was a little rocker, so I figured it kind of hold up to Shine or whatever, being the same band. And so when I was writing Y Part 2, I kept singing, tell me why. And my brother Dean goes, you idiot, you've already written a song called Y. And I was like, yeah, but nobody's heard it, so I'll just put 2 on there. That's Part 2.
It's nearly like a Traveling Wilburys thing about Volume 3 without having the Volume 2. Like we didn't know what Volume 1 or Part 1 was.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Oh, speaking of Traveling Wilburys, look what I was listening to this morning.
Oh, nicely done.
Thank you. A little TP.
Yeah, we got the new Wildflowers stuff finally coming out too. I don't know if you've been hearing any of that, but
no, he was making that as a double album too. Mm-hmm. That was, and they were like, we just signed you to a big contract. I don't think we're putting all the money to it. So I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, that's big stuff. Blender, that was, would it be your final album with Atlantic? Kind of closed up that chapter right there. And as I said, it turns 20, I believe, in October of this year. That's one of the ones that I think, when I listened to prep for this one, I was like, this is probably the one I haven't heard in the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a good record. And I'm admitting that I probably slept on it at the time. And I think a lot of people did. I think everybody did. This seems to be one of the records that Collective Soul fans like to debate the most, how they feel about that. How do you feel about this record?
I think I think we rushed it personally. If you're going to ask me, I'd like 2 more weeks on it. I think some of the songs on there are great. We were searching. I think it was a searching record. Like, are we going to be rock, pop? What, it was one of those, like, because we weren't getting the attention we felt we deserved from the label. And, at that time, the Counting Crows were coming out, Matchbox 20. So are we going in that direction or this direction? And I was like, fuck it, we're going to go rock. We're just going to do it. And that's why we did the Morphine. The only cover we've ever done is Morphine, which people don't, it's like, and I thought that would be a cool vibe, get Atlantic excited, which I think is one of the rockinest songs we've ever done. You Speak My Language.
Mm-hmm.
And I presented it to them, and they were just like, just no excitement at all. So that was where we were kind of like, we get it. And I get it. Times change, especially at the turn of the century. Music change. It seems to evolve that way. Like, 2000. All right, here's the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Britney and all that stuff was coming on too, but more of the pop rock, which at that point we'd established and actually enjoyed being more of a rock band. And it's funny, they made fun of us that the record label was like, "You never put your faces on the album artwork." I was like, I don't want to. And they were like, "You need to do it." And we do it, and they go, "You look like a boy band now." I'm like, can y'all make your freaking mind up?
Well, that was, I mean, there's a few little references that happen around that time because the greatest hits that come after it, calling 7 Year Itch, I always thought was very funny, kind of speaking to the moment there. As I read, what was it, Vent, so maybe comments on what was going on in the business at that point. And there is a thing called band fatigue, fan fatigue for bands, and I think that does naturally happen. And as I was saying, maybe I was going through that at the time, but the amount of melody that you still pull off on an album that, you're saying that you feel like you rushed. Like when I do hear, geez, the first 5-6 tracks on its own is just nonstop hook after hook after hook.
Yeah. And that was our fault. I mean, once again, I agree with you 100%. We should have taken a year or two off just to chill out, because once again, I think you just said we did 5 albums in 6 years, if you include Hints, but that was 5 and 6. Nobody does. I mean, and I got caught up because I write so much that I just want to stay busy. I was excited. The adrenaline was kicking in, and so was the guys in the band. Their adrenaline was kicking in. We were excited, 6 years prior to that, whoever showed up was just who we were dating at the time. And all of a sudden, here we go. Like, let's go. It was a drug in itself, it really was. We should have. I think that record would have been really, really good had we taken a year off and then come and made that record. Yeah. That makes sense.
Sure. But in the meantime, you do have great. 10 Years Later is a great song. I enjoy, I think, the duet with Elton now.
That's one of my highlights. I think, to me, that's where I talk about the struggling of the pop to the rock. So you go to that, which I had talked to Elton, and he agreed to do it. And it's funny because I wrote it as an Elton John, like a rock song, a pop song, like he would. And he was upset because he thought I was going to write a collective rock song. And he came in, he's like, I thought I was going to rock. And I was like, I thought I was going to get to play 1975 with Elton John, PPD over here.
His piano solo is pretty fantastic in that too. He gets that country flavor on it.
One take.
Not surprised.
One take.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. It was just, I was sat there and I was, got my money's worth though. It didn't matter. He played on it. And he did the vocals in 3 takes just because he had to memorize the words. He did the vocals in 3 takes. It's just, and nothing to it. I mean, that was it. There's no, what do you call it? Tune? What do you call it? When you tune people's vocals? Auto-tune. No auto-tune, none of that bullshit.
Yeah.
Just nailed it. And then said, love, where are we going to go for lunch? I'm like, wherever you want.
That's an album I think that does deserve a little bit of a critical
I'd like
redo
to get back
from a
in
lot
there
of people.
and like redo some of that. There's some I like God, what's the one? Because I kind of was listening to the Old School Fix at the time. If I turn around, that's one of my favorite songs as a songwriter. I do like that song a lot.
Well, you've got nothing but time these days, at least for the rest of this year, it sounds like. So why not just along with the 15
A
other
remix.
records that you're doing right now?
A remix. Let's do a remix of Blender. We'll blend Blender up a little again more.
There it is. Well, Ed, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Again, we got the deluxe edition of 95's Collective Soul and the vinyl edition of Hints as well. Both, I'm looking forward to those. And I'm really, I loved Blood. I really loved Blood. I
Thank
cannot
you,
wait
man.
to hear all of these other records that you've got going on.
I'm
right
telling
now.
you, Vibrating's the same. But I mean, it was supposed to be a double record, so it's not the B-sides. It was part of the record, and we're excited for everybody to hear it because we listened to it as a band this week. And we're like, that's probably the strongest record. Like, I just wish it had been a double record, but it's really strong. So thank you as always for your time. You're awesome.
It's always a pleasure, sir. Take care out there, and I hopefully we'll see you soon.
You will. See you.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.